Hey, do you remember this scene from the trailers? It actually looked kind of interesting how Loki was going to get an army of other Lokis and maybe he would use them to fight the TVA. Turns out that's not what happened. What actually happened was dumber. Way, way dumber. It was nothing more than just a quick gag that was stupidly unfunny and just a complete waste of time. How? How does this show manage to get worse and more boring with each episode? Honestly, this level of terrible is kind of impressive. Oh, and don't forget that nearly the entire episode is nothing more than people just sitting and talking. What a piece of garbage. Loki is bad. Season 1, Episode 5. We start with Loki in the destroyed world. This is supposed to be the end of all time. It's called the Void. It's a place where everything is sent to be destroyed. This means that the TVA wasn't disintegrating people. Instead, they were teleporting them to this other place called the Void, where they would then get disintegrated by a giant smoke monster. So it was just, disintegration with extra steps. We then move over to the diversity hire and Rachel, but something is wrong about this scene. They're in the exact same position as they were in the previous episode, except now for some reason they're in a completely different room. Last episode ended in the throne room and it looked like this, and then this episode begins in the courtroom and it looks like this. Throne room, courtroom. Throne room, courtroom. The show creators tried to make it look like it was the exact same pose so that it would feel like it was kind of flowing as one continuous segment from the previous episode, and just hope that no one would notice that it was a completely different room. Either that, or the show creators are just so stupid that they forgot which room the previous episode ended in. Either case, it's dumb, but couldn't they have just walked over to the other room? Isn't that the simpler answer? No, that is bullshit. First of all, if they had tried to walk from the throne room over to the courtroom, then half the TVA would have seen them and stopped them. Secondly, why would the show creators try to exactly replicate what had happened at the end of the previous episode with Rachel on the ground and diversity hire standing over her, trying to threaten her? There's no reason to try to replicate that unless they were trying to make it into one continuous segment, as if the previous episode had flowed naturally right into this. Also, you can tell that it was taken on different days, because if you look at diversity hire's hair, it is very clearly different. So these were not shot on the same day. My guess is that they probably just forgot what room that it was supposed to be in, or they ended up just changing it and hoping nobody would notice.
The buffoonery is endless.
Diversity hire takes Rachel's time tablet, but then Rachel tries to buy herself some extra time by revealing that Loki isn't dead, that he had just been teleported to the Void at the end of time. And we know this is true as the audience because we've seen Loki there, but the diversity hire doesn't know that this is the truth, and this is going to be really important in about a minute. Rachel explains that she doesn't know what's going on or who's really running the TVA, that she's just as surprised as everyone else, and then she claims that now she wants to work with the diversity hire and she wants to find out the truth as well. So the two of them start doing a little bit of research on what happens at the end of time, and Rachel uses Miss Minutes to try to see beyond the Void at the end of time. The diversity hire wants to go past the Void and see for herself what's beyond it, and Rachel says that the tablets can't take anyone there because there's nothing to lock onto. However, the TVA has a prototype ship that would be able to travel through time and go past the Void safely. However, Miss Minutes takes longer and longer to pull up the information, and the diversity hire realizes that the ship probably doesn't even exist and that it was just a trick. Just then a bunch of TVA guards burst through the door and the diversity hire hides on the other side of the room. She then gets the super genius idea to use the glow stick to prune herself, and I can't even begin to express how mind-numbingly stupid this is.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
Okay, let's run through this. We as the audience know that the glow stick will send a person to the end of time instead of just disintegrating them. And Rachel did tell the diversity hire that is what the glow sticks do. But keep in mind that Rachel also lied about the existence of the spaceship. She also lied about wanting to work with the diversity hire. She also lied about her motivations to find out the truth. All of this sort of stuff, she has lied repeatedly to the diversity hire over the last several minutes. There is absolutely no reason that she should have been believed about the glow stick sending people to the end of time. Rachel is a proven liar, and the diversity hire knows this, and it makes absolutely no sense for her to assume that the one thing that Rachel was telling the truth about was the glow sticks. It's fucking dumb.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
And it's not like the glow stick was her only option. Yes, she was trapped in the room, but she also had the tablet she'd taken off of Rachel. She could use that to go literally anywhere and anytime. She didn't have to take the risk that the one thing Rachel was telling the truth about was the glow stick.
Yeah, but this is the one you should trust. I mean, Captain Science over here.
Back with the Lokis, there's a whole bunch of them, and none of them matter except for the old original comic book looking one. We do get a little backstory on him. He did everything the same as the primary MCU Loki, except instead of dying to Thanos, he used his magic to create an illusion of himself. And it was so good that everyone, including Thanos, Thor, and all the rest, believed that Loki was dead, and he just hid himself in the debris. Eventually, he drifted through space, and he was able to use his magic to bring himself to a remote, uninhabited planet. And he managed to hide there for centuries by himself, and his magic continued to get more powerful until one day he tried to leave the planet, and that's when the TVA grabbed him, because that makes perfect sense. Of course it does. His magic of illusion is so powerful that it can trick Thanos, who was wielding the Infinity Gauntlet, but it can't fool sassy Black Lady.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
But don't worry, it gets worse. That scene that I talked about earlier from the trailers with Loki and the army of Lokis, the leader of that group looks like normal Loki, so in the trailers we were tricked into believing that was going to be the main one from the show, but it turns out to just be some other random idiot that no one cares about, and he ends up getting killed off in the next minute. Honestly, there isn't much to say. Basically, it's a whole bunch of stupid. All of these different Lokis start betraying each other, and then because that's what Loki does, he betrays everybody, and it's a big thing about the character, and they all get into a big fight, and then this allows the main show Loki, and the old comic book Loki, and a few of the others to escape, and who cares? It's just a bunch of garbage. Essentially, the trailers for the show were a lot more interesting and exciting than what the events were in the actual show itself. Diversity Hire has arrived in the Void and is now being chased by the smoke monster. Luckily, Mobius suddenly shows up out of nowhere, driving a pizza car.
It's very convenient.
Very convenient.
He seems to know exactly where the Diversity Hire was going to arrive and managed to save her just in the nick of time. Yes, this is entirely stupid, and no, it doesn't make any sense. The two then have an argument about the TVA where the Diversity Hire accuses Mobius of being the bad guy because he was part of the group that wiped out entire timelines. And Mobius points out that the Diversity Hire also did the same thing, but this ridiculous show gives her the upper hand because Mobius was trying to apprehend her. She says, "You were hunting me like a dog." Yes, because she was killing people. But Mobius then apologizes for trying to catch her because she was killing people.
Great job, Morty. A feminist masterpiece.
Yeah, I know, Mobius isn't exactly a perfect angel. After all, he stole that little girl's candy before disintegrating her entire timeline. But stop pretending like the Diversity Hire is this benevolent, inherently good character. She's not. Regardless, Diversity Hire insists that Mobius turn the car around and go back to the smoke monster, and at the same time, the other main Loki and that group of Lokis are gonna go back to the smoke monster as well because, hey, the show needs to get all of them back together, and this is a really dumb way that they can do it, so it just happens. Moments later, when they all get together, Diversity Hire immediately takes charge, and no one seems to have any kind of a problem with this.
Obi, when it fits a woman.
And then she begins insulting the main Loki, saying that he has such an incredibly stupid idea to try and go and kill the smoke monster because her idea is just infinitely better and she wants to go and enchant it. And of course, because she's a woman, everyone agrees and it's the bestest plan ever and they're gonna go and try to enchant the smoke monster. Keep in mind, from what we've seen, in order for the Diversity Hire to enchant anyone, she needs to have physical contact with that other person. However, this is a smoke monster. How in the hell are you supposed to have physical contact with a smoke monster? But hey, this is Loki, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. Fuck it, keep going. Then we get a 4-minute scene of Rachel and the sassy black lady. I'm not kidding here. It is a 4-minute scene that does absolutely nothing to progress the plot in any meaningful way. Seriously, there is nothing in this scene of any value. Nothing at all. Their entire discussion could have been cut out of the entire show and it would have changed nothing. But don't worry, it gets worse, because now we have a 5-minute scene of Loki and the diversity hire just sitting next to each other and talking about their feelings. The dialogue is delivered in the most agonizingly slow way possible, with huge pauses in between and during the sentences. Some of these pauses where there's no dialogue, there's nothing, you're just looking at the two characters sitting there, and some of this goes on for 10 seconds, then they say like 2 or 3 words, and then you have another full 10 seconds of nothing, and then a couple more words, and then more waiting. It just drags on and on and on.
Get over it!
And just like with the previous scene between Rachel and Sassy Black Lady, this adds absolutely nothing to the story at all. You could have cut out this as well. Both of these scenes combined wasted over 9 minutes of the episode with worthless garbage filler. The group finally goes over to the smoke monster, and Mobius is going to use the tablet that was taken off of Rachel in order to leave the void. Kid Loki and the old comic book Loki decide that they want to stay in the void as it now has become their home, and then Kid Loki gives his short sword to the main Loki to help him with the fight against the smoke monster. I don't know why he thinks it would do anything, because, I mean, the Kid Loki has been there for, I guess, centuries or something, and if the sword had done anything against the smoke monster, he probably would have used it by now, but whatever.
Why?
Then for some weird reason, the main Loki conjures up a scabbard in order to put the short sword on his back, and I don't know why he would do this, because he's always used magic to conceal his weapons, and the Kid Loki used magic to conceal the short sword as well. So why would he put it on his back? Probably just because the show creators thought it would look better or more interesting. I don't know, whatever. Regardless, it doesn't make any sense. He creates a scabbard, it's just dumb. Mobius leaves through the portal, and now it's just Loki and the diversity hire against the smoke monster. And Loki tries to distract the smoke monster using the sword, which apparently can go on fire now, and I don't know how he knew it would be able to do that, but it can. So then, anyways, he tries to distract the smoke monster, but it doesn't work. Something else to mention is throughout the entire episode, the old comic book looking Loki had lamented the fact that he never really got to live out his glorious purpose, and he was very frustrated that he never got to change anything or to ever become better, because if he tried to, then the TVA would step in and just wipe everything out. So just before the smoke monster is about to disintegrate the diversity hire, the old comic book looking Loki comes back and conjures a perfect replica of Asgard. Not just a building or two, the entire city.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Holy shit, we're 5 episodes into this god-awful series, and we finally have a single scene that is worth watching, that is actually fun, and that is based around an incredibly cool character. I would rather watch an entire season of this guy than whatever joke the other Loki and the diversity hire have been. I don't want to see them. They're not interesting. They're awful characters. This guy completely steals the show. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to stick around. And that is probably the worst thing about this, is they show us a brief glimpse of something that could be incredibly awesome, and then it's gone.
You make me sad.
And it's clear that this version of Loki is unbelievably powerful in magic, and he uses that conjure and the distraction to pull the smoke monster away. This gives the main Loki and the diversity hire the opportunity to try to enchant the smoke monster together. And the main Loki says that he doesn't know how, but diversity hire says, "You do, because we are the same."
Who wrote this dialogue? A toddler?
Wait, what? What are you talking about? Look, I realize that this is fake magic in a TV show, but canon is important. And it's been very clear up until this point that Loki needed to learn to use magic. In fact, everyone who uses magic in the MCU need to learn how to use it. The only exception is, of course, the Scarlet Witch because of the hex magic, whatever, who cares? Anyways, Loki is a frost giant. He had to learn to use magic. He had to be taught by someone in order to cast all these different spells. So Loki being able to just gain this new power spontaneously because the plot needs him to is ridiculous. Anyways, the smoke monster devours the old Loki, and just before it's able to devour the others, the enchant spell works, and then the smoke monster just disappears. Now, that's not how the enchant spell works either. You're supposed to be able to gain control of the person. That's what the enchant does. But apparently, when you use it on a smoke monster, it just makes the smoke monster vanish into nothingness, which is I don't know. It's just, this is so stupid. And in its place, the smoke monster goes away, and then a portal is opened to a different world with a mysterious castle, and no one cares. I don't know what this is supposed to be. My guess is it's probably Limbo. In case you don't know, in Marvel Comics, there's a special place that's outside of the normal timeline called Limbo. Honestly, who cares? The only interesting thing that we saw from this trailer turned out to be jokes that just fell completely flat. Whether it was the Loki with the army or it was the DB Cooper thing, whatever. Everything in the trailer was better than the actual show. But the funny thing about this episode is that that old comic book looking Loki managed to have a better storyline and a better character arc in 20 minutes than the main Loki has had over the course of the entire season. I would rather have watched an entire series about this guy than about the garbage that we've already gotten. Why? Why do we have to see this? Why are we subjected to this nonsense? It is absolute garbage. This show is trash. Thankfully, that's the end of episode 5.